Hello, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name's Katie, I'm a full-time artist, and today I want to share 10 ideas for when you don't know what to draw. As a creative, I find that sometimes the ideas flow and you don't want to stop drawing and you can just fill loads of pages in your sketchbook. But a lot of the time it doesn't come as easy as that. You can spend hours trolling through copyright-free image sites trying to find that perfect reference, or you just don't know what materials or subject to use that day. So I'm going to share my top 10 ideas, and I often do something like this when I want to fill my own sketchbook, but I don't know what to do. Sometimes it can be really overwhelming because there's just so many things that you can draw, so I hope that these ideas give you a good starting point, and let's go ahead with idea number 1. So prompt 1 is to do a panel spread. I love filling my sketchbooks with these, and you can draw some panels onto your page in whatever format you like. And then I recommend heading over to pexels.com, which is a copyright-free site. Once you're there, search for nature in the search bar, and then scroll down and click on one of the first few images that you see. This gives you a really good base to start a narrative from, which is what I did in the panel spread that I'm showing you here. Based on that one picture of the forest, I then decided to fill in the other panels with a narrative of a woman backpacking, and so the idea really spread from that first one. As you can see here, you could pick this waterfall image or maybe this one of the guy there as well, and it's just a really good starting point for working with your story and filling a panel spread like this. In terms of materials, I recommend using gouache, and if you are wanting a little bit more of a challenge, then I recommend doing your panels in 10 minutes each, which is what I did this spread with. Panel spreads are just a really nice way to fill your sketchbook with lots of little views, and a really nice way to show narrative in a different way. Drawing idea number 2 is to head to one of my favourite sites, which is Mapcrunch. Mapcrunch is really good because it's a random generator, but you can also use Google Maps and randomly drop a pin. With Mapcrunch though, you do have filters and a little bit more choice for what you want it to come up with because it has lots of different filters. I've got a video all about Mapcrunch and using Google Maps for artwork, so I'll link that up in the cards if you're interested. But I find it a really good resource if I'm stuck on what to draw. It's also really good for finding places that you wouldn't normally draw. I know that I stick to Europe quite a lot and I really enjoy drawing the houses there, but on Mapcrunch I can filter it to just America or some other continents and really stretch my legs and try something out of my comfort zone. Another idea with this one is to use a limited colour palette, and I do that quite a few times with my Mapcrunch views because it gives me another limitation but means I'm not overwhelmed with options. The next drawing prompt is to just have a play with your materials. I find that sometimes as artists we're always trying to create really nice artwork, especially with social media. I think it's really changed the idea of drawing and sharing sometimes. So this prompt is to just experiment with some of your favourite materials. I recommend using them differently and experimenting with texture. See how many marks or blending techniques you can create with just that one material, or try using a couple. In this piece I'm using ink and watering it down with a lot of water and using wet on wet blending techniques, as well as a graphite stick to really try new blending techniques and different textures which I'm not normally used to. This was a really different way of working for me, but I think by changing up our techniques now and again and just having fun and playing, it really opens up more styles, and I think that's where we grow as artists. The next drawing prompt is to go outside and paint or draw. Plein air sketching is something that I've really enjoyed recently, and definitely something that I've grown to love over the past few years. I've taken acrylic ink and gouache out with me, and I'm using acrylic ink in this example here, but if you're starting out I recommend taking markers and brush pens and some coloured pencils. You don't even have to go far, you could step into your local garden or park, or even just draw the view from your window. Sometimes it's a really nice way to look at your surroundings differently and notice things that you might not normally. I find that whenever I draw a place, I remember it better, so like when I went to the lakes here, it just felt very peaceful and I really remember that day. Even if you just do a really quick sketch, it doesn't have to be really detailed. It's just a really lovely way of limiting your options again because you're literally just drawing what you see. The next drawing prompt is to paint the view of your desk. And I shared the full process of this one recently, but I've never done this before and I thought it was a really good idea. As with the last one, you can just use what you have in front of you to draw, and I think sometimes we're always looking further than that. But this was a really nice way to kind of go back to the classics and draw a still life. So your desk may be messy or it may be really clean, but I think it really is a nice way to document that in your sketchbook or on paper, and for this one I recommend using acrylic paint. You can either use them watered down or with thicker impasto marks, but I recommend being really mindful about this and really noticing the shapes that are on your desk. If you don't have a desk, then maybe you could draw your kitchen counter or another side that you have at home. The next prompt is to use a holiday photo as your reference and draw that view. I know that we can be very snap heavy when we go on holidays and we're constantly taking photos, and if you're not into scrapbooking or keeping photo albums, sometimes they're just left on your phone and they're not looked at again for quite a while. So I recommend drawing from them because it gives you another way to reflect on the holiday and really enjoy those pictures and those memories that you made there. But if you haven't been on holiday or you don't have any photos from a trip to draw from, then you can also use this prompt with family or friends' holiday photos. If you have some family who travels a lot, then you can ask them to send some photos. I know when my brother went to Wales, he sent me some pictures because he knew that I would love to draw that landscape, and that was a really lovely way to connect with him a little bit more and also draw a beautiful view that I wouldn't have seen otherwise. Often I use reference sites, but it's a good reminder that we do have lots of photos that we can draw from our own arsenal, and it's also copyright free because you own the images. The next prompt is to choose a famous road trip destination and then drop a pin on Google Maps and fill your sketchbook spread with the views you find along the way. I did a couple of road trip series during my daily art challenge, including the Pacific Coast Highway and a road trip around Switzerland. This is slightly different to the Google Maps and Mapcrunch idea because although you are using that for your views, it's a little bit more considered because you're picking the road trip first. Again, because there's so many choices on Google Maps and for drawing in general, it's a really nice way to narrow things down, but create a series in your sketchbook. Another idea for this one is to go smaller, so I did these in my 12 by 12 centimeter Royal Talon sketchbook, and it meant it was a little bit less daunting for me as I was creating these every week and doing it as a continuous series on my Instagram. I really like the smaller size, and it meant I didn't spend a huge amount of time on each piece, which is really handy if you're very busy with other life stuff but still want to spend 10 minutes or so to get creative. The next prompt is to paint your favourite bird and fill the page with their poses. Now I filled a couple of my spreads in this way and I really love the final effect. I'm painting magpies here, but I've also done this with chickens, and I've done it with other animals too, including butterflies. You don't have to just stick to animals, you can also do it with flowers or fungi, but I just think it's a really effective spread, and sometimes you don't realise how many varieties or types of things there are, so it's kind of like a wormhole when you Google something and see how many different things and varieties you can draw. This is a really good way to practice birds for me, and I really like seeing how the different poses means their character comes through, and like I said, it's just really good practice. For this one I'm using gouache, but I recommend using the technique of not sketching first because it helps keep things really loose and it's a really nice way to be a bit less precious with your artwork. The next idea is to make a study of an existing painting. I picked this illustration, which is from a fairy tale book and it's illustrated by Alfred Thon, but it's a really good exercise to copy other paintings from older masters and really try and mimic their technique. Now obviously there's the issue of copyright here, so this is just a sketchbook practice thing. I wouldn't recommend making prints or anything like that, but for creating in your own sketchbook in your own time, I think it's a really good thing to try, and it means you don't have to think about the composition or the colours because you're literally copying from somebody who's already done it and already knows what they're doing. There's a lot of really incredible paintings from the old masters that use very different techniques, and I think it's a really good way to get creative. For this piece I experimented with different materials, but it was a really refreshing thing to do when I was doing my daily art challenge because it really took my brain away from the challenge for the day because I was basically just copying what was in front of me. It meant I used a totally different colour palette to normal as well, which was really inspiring to me and meant I came back the next day with a few more ideas. So number 10, which is the final prompt, is to paint a houseplant in your sketchbook using acrylic paint. I have so many plants in my house, but this is actually the first time that I've painted a houseplant in my sketchbook. It's not something that I generally draw, but it was really good practice and I really love the end result. Using acrylic meant I could be really thick with my marks because I'm so often using gouache, so I recommend really leaning into that and not watering down your acrylic paint. Again, with this one I didn't sketch, but if you feel more comfortable doing that, then I definitely recommend doing it with a lighter pencil first and then going in with a flathead brush to really show the brush strokes. I don't love the result of this one, but it was a really nice subject and definitely something that I want to come back to and draw more houseplants from soon. So I hope that you enjoyed watching this video and that it's given you some ideas for if you're stuck on what to draw. I think lists like this are always good to reference because you can take the idea and draw upon from it, so you don't have to just do the one thing, you can always expand and make it your own. I always found lists and ideas like this really helpful when I was doing my daily art challenge, and so I really hope you find this a good resource for if you're stuck on what to draw. If you have your own ideas and prompts you would like to share, please do pop them down below in the comments and we'll use this video as a resource for when the creative inspiration just isn't flowing and we can come to this video and fill our sketchbook that way. Thank you so much for watching and I will see you next week with a new video. See you later!